In today's show, we're going to learn how to create SharePoint summary data using Power Automate, aka Flow. The idea is we're going to use a filter array, we're going to select some stuff, we're going to compose some stuff. We're just going to kind of go through some motions of grabbing some SharePoint data, bringing it in, sorting it, filtering it, and then using that data to write back to SharePoint. So just teach you some of those core flow skills that I think we all need to be better at. But first, here's our intro. Hi, my name is Shane Young with Power Apps 911. Those guys. And today, we're going to talk about playing with our SharePoint data, but we're going to do it in a programmatic or repeatable way using our friend Power Automate. So the idea is this came from one of my customer calls I had this week that then someone asked me the same question the next day. I was like, oh, this must be something you guys want to do. But what she was looking for was she wanted to grab her SharePoint list. So she had a big SharePoint list of data that had been populated. And she wanted to be able to go through that data and she wanted to find all of the data or all the rows, records, if you will, that had the same piece of metadata and then do a summary. So in our case, we're going to use my SharePoint employees list. We're going to count all the people in each department, and then we're going to write that back to the SharePoint record so we have that update. And then, just to show you guys a couple other tricks and kind of inspire your brains a little bit, we're going to do something like maybe take the average age of someone in that department or just something like that, just to kind of get your brains wrapped around how to do some math on that filter data. And so to do that, we're going to use the filter array action. So we haven't used that one before. Like I barely ever use it in my life. So I just thought it was good for us to work through. Sound like fun? I thought so. So let's switch over to my desktop and take a look. The first thing we want to do over here on the desktop is, here's my SharePoint list. And so you can see that we have a department column. And I have several people that are executives. It's 4 to be exact. These are, once again, fake data, but I have 4 of them. I think there's 2 people in finance, and so some of these departments have multiple people, some only have 1. But what I want to be able to do is I want to be able to go through here. So we're going to iterate through this data. So I'm going to grab Nicola's record and we're going to say, hey, I want to count how many other people are in the same department as she is. So that'll be 4. And then we want to store that into a SharePoint column. So that was kind of the requirements, and I don't have a SharePoint column at the moment for that. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to jump over here and we're going to say list settings. Then we're going to scroll down here and we're just going to create a column to store this data. And so we'll just call this something simple like num employees department, something like that. Remember, no spaces. If spaces are a thing you like to use in your SharePoint list, you should go watch my other video that talks about why they're evil. So we're not going to have a space. And we're going to make that a number column. And then we'll scroll down the bottom of the page and click on OK. I don't know why after all these years we still don't have an OK up at the top, but we don't. Okay, so that'll give us a place to put that data. The other thing we're going to do, I'm going to create one more column. And so for this one, we're going to calculate the average department employee wage or something like that. So average department wage. And we're also going to make that one a number as well. And so the reason I want to do that is because when we get done with kind of the base demo that I'd planned, I thought that was like one step further. And I was one step further. I always seem to make these more interesting. So let's say okay. Cool. Okay, so our SharePoint list is ready for us. Those columns are obviously blank. So we're going to jump over here to Power Automate. We're going to say create. And for right now, I'm going to use an instant cloud flow. So anytime I'm trying to learn a new concept or figure out new things, it's always an instant cloud flow. I don't want to go manipulate SharePoint data or cause a timer or anything to happen. I just want to be able to trigger the flow when I'm ready to trigger the flow to prove it works. But then we could change the trigger at that point to every time a new item gets edited in this SharePoint list, or every time this list changes, or whatever you want to do. But we're just going to manually trigger this one because what we're trying to learn is the concept, not put it into a working solution necessarily yet. So manually trigger it. New step. The very first step is we're going to get some SharePoint data. So SharePoint. And then here we're just typing get items. There it is right at the top. Perfect. What site address? So we're going to go to our same SharePoint site, Power Apps Videos. And then we're going to go to our dear friend, the employees list. Oh, this list gets used so much. There you go. And so we could do all these other ones. Now, one of the things I will remind you that I don't necessarily need to do right now, but you guys might. If you hit show advanced options, you can do a top count and you could limit this. So if you were working on a data set that had 10,000 rows, well, while you're iterating through this, you don't want to process 10,000 rows, right? You don't want 20 minutes between tests. So you either want to build something like this and explore this concept on a small list, or you can say, hey, only grab the first 10 rows. And so then now it would only get the first 10 rows out of my data set, which would give me the effect of being able to iterate very quickly to do my testing and learning. And then when we're done, we just take that out and it would get all the rows. So another little handy trick to learn. But there you go. We're going to get all the items. So now that we've got all the items, what I need to do is I want to be able to loop through all those items. Remember, we want to grab every record one by one and kind of process this. So I'm actually going to say a manually apply to each. So type apply, and there's the manually apply to each. Or I don't know why I keep saying manually, but I do. But apply to each. And so we're going to say I want to loop through the value that comes out of get items. So value is the individual rows or records that are going to come out. And so we're just going to say, hey, apply to each says I want to do something once for each one of those as we go. Cool? So what do we want to do? Well, we're going to add an action. And so this is where I got into some weird territory that I'd never done, but we figured it out, so I'm going to share with you. So I want to filter the array. Because what I want to do, so I want to, for every record, right, so as we're looping through, let's just go back over here. So when I grab Nicola's record, right, it's the first one we'll grab, I then want to filter all of these data to find just the 4 people that make department, right? So if we say filter by executive right now, right, we'll see that there's 1, 2, 3, 4 records. So that's what I want to do, but I want to do this programmatically over in Flow, not over here manipulating this by hand, right? We could do it by hand, but who's got time for that? So what we're going to do first is we're going to say array to filter, and so that is going to be the value of get items. So if you put this and hover here, now one of the things I want you guys to be very careful with this because we're going to kind of use the data twice. One set's coming out of apply to items and one's out of get items. It's going to be a little confusing at times. So at any point that you want to make sure you've got the data that you've got, right? If I hover over this, it tells me outputs get items body/value. So that's the value from up above, right? So that is this output, which is what we want. So I want to filter that data. Now it says, hey, I want to choose a value. So what value do I want? Well, I want to find where the department, so I'm going to scroll down here and click on department. And this is where you got to be smart again, because we're going to say, it's real easy to go like department is equal to, and then, let's scroll over here, and then department equals department. But if you look at this now, it says, all right, so that is the apply to each. So that's Nicola's department. That's one of the ones we want. Cool. Is equal to items apply to each, the department that it just pulled. Well, that would just always be true. That's no, right? That's not what we want. We don't want to compare department to department from apply to each. This needs to be the department that comes from up here. Whew, right? A little weird. So now what we're going to have to do, we're just going to exile. It's like we never needed to do that to begin with, but I wanted to show you the most common mistake I think you're going to make, and you leave me comments, be like, oh, why is it just matching everything? That's why. So what we're going to do now is we're going to say, I want to write an expression. So we're just going to manually call this out. To do this, we want the item out of that we're currently filtering, right? So the arrays data we're currently filtering. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do item. Oh, there's the item function. A question mark. I'm going to move my cursor so it's out of the way. And we're going to do a square bracket, a single quote, and now it's going to be our column name. And so in our case, it is department. So department just like that. And then we're going to say, okay. So this is going to look different, and this should look different, right? So this one is the apply to each department. So in the first record, that'd be Nicola's. The second record, it'll be mine, right? So that's the current one from the apply to each. And then item department is when we're looking through this array of data, which is the whole data set, we're going line by line by line by line by line. Okay? So if that makes any sense to you guys whatsoever, then you're doing great, because that's what we're after, right? We're now able to filter this array. And so this should come out now with a little bit of, or this should have the number of rows or number of records that match. So we're going to say add an action here. I'm going to scroll down here. We're going to use a compose for right now. I misspelled compose, and Flow still figured it out. And so in this compose, what I want you guys to do is we're going to use an expression called length. And so length is the same as count rows in Power Apps, if you're one of my Power Apps viewers. But the idea here is that you can either count the length of a string. So if I gave it Shane is awesome, right, that would give you like, I don't know, 15 characters or whatever. It wouldn't be true either, but whatever. Or you can give it a collection or an array, and it'll count the number of rows. So in our case, we're going to say, I want the length, And then I'm going to click on dynamic content if this little thing ever goes, I'm going to go back over there. Ever mentioned flow is a little frustrating to work with? I try not to say it too much, but I'd say it a lot. Let's try this again. Length, parentheses, click out of there, click back in there. Oh, now the little pop-up's gone. Now we can click dynamic content. And so we're going to say length of the filter array. So in the case of Nicola's record, this should give us 4 because there should be 4 records that match her department. So we're going to say, okay, that looks good. All right, let's do one more thing. No, let's just test this. Let's hit save. I'll just go overflow a name. Video filtered. I don't know. We'll say save. All right, so then that looks good. So we'll say test. We'll manually trigger the test. We're going to say test up here. And if you get a warning about not enough rows or whatever, just ignore it. It's annoying. We'll say run the flow and say done. It's not bad. A few seconds of a flow. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say compose, and we got 3. Now, I promised you 4, but I only got 3. Why? Because I wasn't thinking about it, but I left, remember we told it up here to only get the top 10 rows? Well, the 4th one is in my greater row set. So if you mess with this, make sure that you don't get angry with yourself, because I could see how I would have gotten frustrated if I hadn't just remembered I did that. But, so we got 3 of those. And then like if we go to the next record, which is also me, so this one should be 3. And then the 3rd record will be Jennifer. Oh, she's also executive, so that's going to be 3 also. Nope. So, yep, okay, there's 3 for Jennifer. And then let's do, so this one, oh no, this is filtered data. I'm so confused, people. See what happens when you start filtering things? Go away. There we go. So we got Greg in finance. So I'm a little confusing myself right now. So what we're going to do, we're going to do 2 things. We're going to say edit. We're going to go back up here. We're going to get rid of this so we get all the right data. Shoo. Okay. The second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here and we're going to go a little further with my compose, right? Because we don't, the end result is not this compose, but I use this like I use labels in Power Apps. So I have a way to see what's happening. So that's the length. Then what if we just go right here and say, hey, I also want to add a dash. And then how about we just add our friend, the department again. Now we want to make sure it's the right department, so we're going to hover, items apply to each department, so that would be Nicola's department on the first row. So then now if we save, we get this little warning thing. This is one I told you a second ago, just ignore this. Yeah. There we go. Now then we'll say test. We'll automatically just run that test again. And so now what will happen is, A, we should get the numbers I expect, but we also should have the label of information. So right here, down here, so there's 4 executives. Woo! Notice this is 1 of 12 now. There's 1 person in finance. That's correct. 4 executives, 2 people in IT. Boom, right? So we are actually doing the calculations that we wanted. Yay! Okay, so now that we have the calculations done and we use the little compose just to validate, right? The compose isn't doing anything for us, but it's how I think. So now we're going to add an action. We're going to type in SharePoint again. We're going to go right here. And then we're going to go down here and say, oh, we're just going to search for update because I can't find update. And we're going to say update item. We're going to choose our SharePoint item, our SharePoint list again. So Power Apps videos, our employees list. Perfect. The ID is going to be the ID that we're currently getting out of the loop right there. And we can hover, make sure it's the right one. Items apply to each ID. Perfect. So for title, we're going to do the same thing. Title is required, so we have to push it back. But we're not changing it. We're just using the same one. And so then down here, number of employees, department. Well, we've already figured this out, right? It's just length. And then put the cursor right back in the middle, dynamic content. And it's the length of this. Perfect. Say OK. Say save. Oh, there's that silly warning again. Just go away, warning. And so then now, we should be able to hit test finally and get this to actually go this time. Look at that. After like 10 seconds, it looks like it worked. So what we'll just do is we'll go here. We will refresh this page. We'll scroll to the right. Number of employees, 41422, right? Numbers. We could validate all of them, but I don't think you guys want to watch me do it. I think you trust me that those are all correct. So there you go. We have solve the initial problem we set out to do, which is grab all of our data, do some summarization, and then push it over. Now, what I wanted to cover next, though, let's edit this thing again. So that was pretty straightforward because really we were just writing the length, right? Just a simple piece in there. But one of the things that I started to think about was, well, what if I wanted to go further, right? So for example, we want to get that average wage per employee. So that's a little bit trickier because that's not just as simple as counting the number of rows that came back from the filtered array. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw another compose up here. So to help us think, right? We know me, I like composes. There we go. And so what I want to do here is try and loop through. And so there isn't a way like in Power Apps where you do a sum, right? So sum, table, and then column, and it would just add it up. That's not possible over here. So I throw my compose, I go to expression, and I'm like, all right, let's go over here to the math, see more. And so they have min and max that'll take a filter array, but all the rest of these are just, let me add up single numbers, multiply, divide. So it's not going to work for us. So compose is actually not going to help us. Boo, I'm very sad. So we'll get rid of our compose, delete it. So what we're going to have to do is now we need to get a variable to store it. So we have to loop through the data that got filtered and store that in a variable. So before we can use a variable, we're going to go up to the top. I'm going to say add an action. I'm going to say variable. And the first thing we have to do is initialize a variable. So we're going to click on that. And I'm going to call it var total wage. Something like that. Perfect. And so then what I want to do is I'm going to make that one so there's either integer, remember integers are whole numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or float, which is going to have decimal points. And since we're doing hourly wage, and if we look over here at my employees' hourly wages, we should see that they got a lot of decimals. So we're going to need a float, okay? And then the initial value will be 0. Great. So now we're going to drop in here to our apply to each again. And we're going to say, right here, right? Because we need to do it before we update item. But add an action. And we're going to say, now we want to increment a variable. So there's an increment variable action, which variable? Var total wage. So that just basically adds to it, right? So I'm going to say, hey, I want to add to you. And so, but we want to add to you from the filtered data. So when we filtered the array, we had this data, but I don't want its item or its body. So what we're going to have to do now is we're going to have to like write our own little logic again, and we're going to need another apply to each. Oh, all right. So we're going to go right here. We're going to say add an action. We're going to do apply to each again. So funny, apply to each just get created automatically all the time. And here I am, just keep making them over and over again. And so we're going to say, hey, I need the output of our previous guy, right? So we're going to grab the item. And so then that would pull, right, that's going to pull the body or the data out. And so we're going to say for that, oh wait, where did I put this in the wrong place? Oh, no, okay. Whew, I scared myself for a second there. So it's in here, right? Like chaos has ensued. All right, I did too many things, so let's just delete this, start over, right? just a nick of time of me saying that this thing just does whatever it wants to do. It did whatever it wanted to do. So let's try this again. Go back in here, add an action, apply to, oh, we got to spell apply right. So apply to each again. All right. So let's try this again. We're going to scroll to the bottom, and we're going to grab the body. There we go. It's because I clicked on item last time like a dodo brain. We want the body. And so then now we're going to grab our increment variable. We can just drag this up here, right? You guys knew that, right? Yay. Drag that up there. Maybe that's the little thing you took out of this video. And so then for the value, we're going to grab, we want the current item's hourly wage. So from our filter array, no. So we want this, but we don't want the current item. We actually want to grab, we're going to write a formula again. So we're going to do expression. We're going to do item, right? We want the current item, question mark, square bracket, like this. And if we look over here, I believe this hourly wage, no space, perfect. So we're going to go hourly wage, just like that. We're going to say okay. And so then this should loop through all the ones it got, and it is going to then be like, hey, awesome, we've got that here. So var total wage. So now we'll go down here and say average department wage. Well, wait. But we don't want the total. We wanted to take, we have to take the total and divide it, right? So let's do a little math here. So we'll go here, we'll go to math, see more, and we're going to divide. So what are we going to divide? We're going to divide our variable var total wage by what? By the length, again, right? We got to do this formula a lot, apparently. A length, click out of there, back in there, and then we want the length of our dear friend. Where are you? We want the length of our filter array's body. There it is. Say OK. Oh, it is not happy with something I did. Let's check. Length is there. That is that. That looks right. Let's do this. Control A. Let's just make sure. It's because we're on the expression side. No. What did I do wrong? You guys probably already see it. So divide. Oh, why did I put the thing right. So divide my variable total wages. I lost the parenthesis along the way. By the length, the body length, boom. How about that? All right, let's hover over that again, make sure that's right. So div the variable total wage, yep, by the length. And so then that should give us a accurate look at the average department wage. At least good enough to make me feel good. Now the other thing that I was going to make the mistake, so you can see me fix it, but I'm not going to, is keep in mind that as I'm looping through here, after we use this, I need to make sure that the first time back through that this variable is back to 0. So I'm just going to go down here, add another action, and say set variable. There's variable. And so we're going to say set variable var total wage. We got to zero it back out, right? Because we don't want to have a rolling total. We need to do each group independently. So we got to set that variable back to 0 each time after we've used it. So when we go through the next apply to each, right? So for Nicola, we've got a value, and then for Greg, we got a different value. So we're going to want to make sure we do that. All right, I feel good. Let's say save. Dumb warning again, go away. We'll say test, test, test. And I click on that top one out of habit. You don't actually have to choose the top one. I could have left it selected where it was, but this is going to loop through, so hold on a sec. All right, so it took longer, right? 20 seconds now. Ooh, so long. But I have a really small data set, so keep that in mind. But I feel pretty nice that happened, so no errors. We'll refresh this. We'll scroll to the right. Average hourly wage for this group is $40.28. Average for this one, $7.55. 38. Now, so I would have expected, right, because I think Nicola and I are in the same department. Okay, so Nicola and I are in the same department. We have different hourly wages. So that is not good. So something didn't work right. All right, well, let's go take a look at it then. All right, because I totally didn't try that in the pre-planning. I just decided to do it on the fly for you guys. That's what I get for trying things on the fly. So let's see. So if we go to apply to each, and here, so there was 4 records, so it should have added those up. So 40, 28, 38, 70, yep, that looks right. Added 75, that looks right. 253, right? So divide that by 4 should be what? Roughly 50 would get you 200, 60 would get you 240, so 64, 63, 63. $63 and some change is what I would expect that to be. And so down here, let's see what we got. So we said, all right, average. Oh, did I just look in the wrong column? Average department wage is 63. That is correct. Hey, Shane, keep scrolling this way. Don't look at hourly wage. Look at average. People, I got it right. Oh, I thought I screwed up. So there you go. Average department wage is right there, and you can see that they are the same for both people that are executive, which is what it should be. And so you probably wouldn't ever do anything like that. I get it, right? You're like, well, I would just calculate that and store it somewhere else for the... I understand. It's not about the end solution. It's about learning how to do this type of data manipulation, right? So no comments below about how that's a dumb scenario. It was a dumb scenario, but it showed you guys how to do some really cool stuff, I hope. If it ain't show you how to do cool stuff, then you can complain. But there you go. So we have worked our way through all this. Now, it was interesting. I was talking to my friend Pietro earlier, and he said, hey, this is the right way to do this. If you have a small data set like that, summing. But he has this crazy idea in his head about how to do it. If you had a large data set, how to do that summing that we just did. And so he tells me he's going to write a blog post about it this week. If he does, I will put that down below in the description. So if you're into like, hey, I want to do that mathy thing, I want to calculate the average wage, but across 1,000 people, then check out below, and hopefully sometime this week there'll be a link. So cool. All right. So there you go. I like this. This is interesting. This is fun. These are some new things. I had never used filter array in a meaningful way until this week, so I had to learn about it. So I thought you should learn about it. As always, if you have any questions or comments, leave them below, right? I appreciate those. Hit subscribe if you haven't hit subscribe yet either. I'm almost to 100,000. I really want 100,000 people, so I need you. If you have any ideas for other videos, all that, I'm always ears for those information as well. I got a live training class coming up. Remember, you also, if you're a subscriber over in the training classes, including the curated library, which is only like $10, then you could download the working flow here after I post it today. Okay, anyway, that's enough blah, blah, blah. I got a kids basketball game to go coach, so I'm going to stop recording and say thanks and have a great day. Before you go, be sure to click on the subscribe button over here so that way you'll be notified when new videos come out. If you need any help or you want to work together, whether your problem's big or small, check us out at Power Apps 911. We do it all. I rhymed. Or if you're looking for more formal training offerings, we have those linked up here somewhere. So check them out. Thanks and have a great day.